Sometimes God touches a life so deeply that it lights the way for thousands. This is the true story of George Müller, a man who had no money, no supporters, but one unshakable strength: faith. Early life. George Müller was born in 1805 in a small town in Germany. As a young man, he lived a wild life. He skipped school, told lies, and stole money from his own father. He was lost, and his life had no purpose. But God had a plan. A turning point. One evening, a friend invited him to a Bible study. There, for the first time, George heard the message of God's love and forgiveness. God can forgive all your sins if you turn back to Him with a true heart. That night, George wept. He gave his heart to Christ, and everything began to change. A new mission. George decided to serve God with his whole life. He moved to England and saw thousands of orphan children living in the streets, cold, hungry, and without hope. He made a vow: I will help them, but I will never ask anyone for money. I will only ask God in prayer. Building orphanages. He started with a small house where 30 children lived, but soon it became 100, then 500, and one day, over 2,000 children lived under his care. He never begged, never made requests to people. He prayed, and God always provided. A morning of miracles. One cold morning, 300 children sat at the breakfast table. There was no food, not even bread, not a single drop of milk. But George Müller smiled and said, "Let us thank God for the food He will give us." They bowed their heads and prayed. Then suddenly, a knock at the door. A local baker stood outside and said, "I don't know why, but God woke me up early and told me to bake extra bread for your children." Moments later, a milkman appeared. His cart had broken down in front of the orphanage. "The milk will spoil," he said. "Would you like to take it?" That morning, every child ate, full and happy. Not because George had money, but because he had faith. A legacy of faith. In his lifetime, George Müller cared for more than 10,000 orphans. He raised today's equivalent of millions of dollars without asking anyone. He simply prayed, and time after time, God answered. Final words. Maybe today you feel lost. Maybe you feel alone with nothing in your hands. But George Müller proved that with faith, even empty hands can open heaven's doors. Don't give up. Don't fear. Pray, believe, and watch how God moves in your life.